My husband is melting down over a gender disappointment. I am 13 weeks and 5 days pregnant, and we had our first trimester screening last week with an NIPT test, and we sprang for all the genetic testing, and this morning they called and told us everything was normal, and we're having a girl. I am elated. I didn't have a gender preference. I think all genders have their pros and cons, and children are going to be who they're going to be. I guess I'm more excited for the closure, that during a time where so much is up in the air, we have an answer to one of the biggest questions we have. I told my husband, and he was happy at first, but he said he was a little disappointed because he wanted a boy. But as the day goes on, he's telling me he really wanted a boy more intensely than he was letting on throughout the pregnancy. Like he would make little jokes about manifesting that the baby is a boy and telling people that he wants the baby to be a boy. He's reading all these articles online about gender disappointment that says he's going through that, which is normal, but his gender disappointment goes deep. For instance, we live in the southeastern United States, and he's afraid that our daughter will get subpar healthcare, which is a very reasonable thing to worry about. As well, what if she's LGBTQ+? And she will be mixed race, white and black, and will face discrimination for that too. But then he said he was afraid she will get predated upon. And I said that was a possibility with a boy too. And then he said that he feels less of a bond with our daughter because of sexist stereotypes on his part, like, what if she likes clothes shopping? I hate clothes shopping. And you have to teach a girl how to be modest. And I can't teach her how to pee. What? And I told him kids are going to like what they like. You can get a girl who likes trucks and a boy who likes to paint his nails. You can influence that to an extent, but kids are going to be who they're going to be. He also said that girls are harder to raise, and it's unfortunate timing that our 12-year-old niece that we take care of got a call from the principal right as he was saying that. I said, I don't know if girls are so much hard to raise as our niece is hard to raise. We have a small sample size, and that's just bad science. He then said that he was hoping for a boy because he wanted to be a better father to his son than his own deadbeat father was to him, and he was slightly insecure about his own masculinity and wanted a son to prove that he could be masculine and raise a masculine son. I said he should unpack that in therapy. He has a therapist that he sees once a week on Thursdays. But have any of y'all dealt with this? I searched the subreddit, but most of the gender disappointment posts were from the pregnant people themselves or relatives or friends, but not the spouse. I like the advice that he'll feel differently when he holds her for the first time, but that's 6 months from now, and I gotta live with him that whole time, and I'm trying to not let him ruin my day and excitement, but it's tough. Update, 7 months later. First, he chose her name, and like some of you said, his therapist helped him realize that his anxiety was less about our daughter's gender itself and more about his anxiety at impending parenthood. Knowing our daughter's gender made the pregnancy real for him. He was freaking out because he knows what it's like to be a boy, but a girl is unknown. He doesn't know how to be a girl, on top of the unknown of parenting, if that makes sense. Also, he got over himself about his interests not being girly and therefore having nothing in common with her because she's a baby. Her interests right now are shapes, colors, and my boobs. Why it took the birth of his baby girl for him to realize this when he's been married to me, a girl who shares his interests for 8 years, well, we will never know. Continuing, my niece is still difficult to raise, but he has the sense now to realize that she or his tumultuous relationship with his sister or his mom is not indicative of all girls and women. I should send his therapist flowers. And finally, a point of clarification. When he said he was afraid to have a girl because he didn't like clothes shopping, that wasn't him saying, women be shopping. That was him saying he doesn't know how to shop for women's clothes. Which is fair. I've been a girl for 32 years and I haven't even mastered that. Where are all the pockets? All of this to say, the gender disappointment issue ended up being that he ruined one day I had back in March of this year. He loves our daughter, does not resent her for not being a boy, and didn't leave me over his gender disappointment. I just want other parents experiencing this to know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you to everyone who weighed in. I felt really validated. So, this is the first time I've heard about gender disappointment. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of people who have been disappointed by the gender of their child, but I didn't know it was like a named issue. Also, him saying, I don't know how to teach her how to pee, was just really absurdly funny to me. But anyway, there's not much else to say. They resolved it like adults. They didn't get divorced or go no contact over this. This was just a, I would say, kind of like valid form of like anxiety and concerns and like past trauma manifesting within the dad. And then he unpacked it with the therapist. He had his daughter, and now everything's good. And he got to name the kid. And now her name is Jupiter. I don't know why they would name their child Jupiter, but I'm sure it'll catch on. Anyway, Anyway, next story. Story number 2. How do we tell the in-laws that a member of the family is not welcome in our home? I am 30F, my husband is 32M, and his family are coming up to visit us. We moved away a few years ago for work. We were informed a few months ago that his aunt Becca and her third husband John were also coming too, unprompted. We don't like John. To put it plainly, he is a narcissistic a-hole. And recently it came to light that there was a court case that named him as a perpetrator of grooming one of his students in the 70s to 80s. He tried to soften the blow by saying it was a relationship. Gross, but the victim won the civil case. No criminal charges were ever filed against him. Becca put her foot down that if the family wanted a relationship with her, they had to accept that John was a part of it. And being such a close family, my in-laws went along with that. My husband and I have successfully avoided major interactions with him after things came to light, but now they are coming straight to us and piggybacking off the in-laws visiting. At first, we thought we could sidestep the interaction, plan dinner at our place before they arrived, go out instead, or just be busy, etc. But when planning for their trip, they are insisting that Becca and John need to come to our house for dinner, and they are coming up to see us. So, my husband and I now know we need to place boundaries and they need to be done now. We went to sit down as parents and state firmly that John is not welcome in our home, and any advice for things to say in this conversation or advice from anyone that has had to do the same would be appreciated. I have cut family off for the same situation, but I was never the one leading the conversation, and my husband is stressed and worried about a him versus John scenario. Thanks for the advice in advance. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "Honestly, I would just be direct. Tell them that you understand that they are willing to accept John to have a relationship with their sister, but that you and your husband are in no way obligated to do the same, and that John is not welcome." Then user 2 commented and said, "Ask yourselves all the questions they may hypothetically ask you, and consider their responses to the answers for your rebuttal. You don't have all the facts, but do you have enough information to form an opinion? Did you see the related paperwork from the court case? They know the why. Are you prepared to no longer have a relationship with Aunt Becca and potentially your parents? Either way, your house and lives are your rules. It's okay to say no. Sorry if her feelings are hurt because of this, but you're not responsible for her feelings. Cancel or reschedule with the parents if they cannot take your no for an answer." This is actually very helpful. We don't have all the facts, but we read parts of the deposition that were available to us, and the court case made small news where they are from. Specific quotes from John have made us worried that this isn't his first victim. I'm not sure what my in-laws are aware of, and I went looking for the information and had to dig a bit deeper. They may not be aware of what Becca and John has told them. Only one news source that was 2 paragraphs long and not in depth. Then user 2 replied again and said, "Are you planning on telling the in-laws before they come? If so, get them on the phone or on Skype and say, while we love having you visit, we will not be allowing John in our home. This is non-negotiable. We are willing to meet somewhere for dinner, but he is not welcome in our home. And if you plan on telling them after they arrive, same conversation, just in person. When they try to argue, just reiterate that it's non-negotiable and you will not be changing your mind. Hold to your boundaries." We will be telling them prior and have the opportunity to speak in person prior to their visit. Then Opie elaborated on if her husband has her back or not and said, "Luckily, my husband is the most amazing person, and once these boundaries in place, he not only has my back, but is leading the charge of stating our needs and wants. He always got a bad feeling from John, and when we broke the news, he was not surprised. We don't have kids yet, so he wants to make sure that the expectation is set when we do. He is nervous about the possible backlash from his parents, but says he wants to make sure we have a safe home we are comfortable in, even if it means his parents are distant." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "I wouldn't be too worried about putting this boundary in place. The majority of the time, you've managed to avoid husband's aunt and her husband, so mostly nothing will change. If other people decide to host an event somewhere and they will be in attendance, you can decide if you're comfortable going to an event and just ignoring them or whether you choose not to attend. However, this situation does involve you, as they are planning to come to your home, and for you to make dinner for them and play happy families whilst hosting them. That's a whole different situation, one that does involve you. Do you have children yourself? If so, it's even more important that he's not allowed in your house. Also, it sounds like Becca and John have invited themselves to your house to see your in-laws. You didn't even invite them to your home, which makes this even worse. If they try and guilt trip you and manipulate you into letting him come, just tell them it's not up for discussion, and either ignore the message or leave if it's in person." I really appreciate this reply. Yes, you are right. They were not invited. We didn't even invite the in-laws. They just told us one day that they were going to come up. We told them we can't host them, so they would have to get a hotel and that we might not even be available to see, which to their credit they took on the chin and apologized for not communicating what they wanted to do. My husband and I have placed boundaries before, but not to this scale, and we don't have kids yet. We only found out a couple of months ago that Becca and John were coming up too, on their way to a second vacation spot, but I think either mother-in-law or grandparent-in-law told them to come up for a big family visit. Previously, they were only supposed to be up for one day and then on their way, which we decided we could have avoided by going out to dinner. Last night, the in-laws were planning what they wanted to do and see, and that's when the conversation came up of Becca and John wanting to see the house, and they want to all come over for dinner and play games. Which was a switch-up. We said no. They decided to complain and double down. We said no again, and have decided after their complaints to finally sit down and tell them we won't have John in our home. Update. Thank you to everyone for their advice on the original post, and also giving us the push we needed to be firm with our boundaries. I wanted to clarify some questions I saw in the original post before going into the update. First, my husband was the one leading the conversation with his family. We created the post together, so the wording was ambiguous. I was there for support, but not the one managing the conversation. Second, a few people were asking how we even got to the point of Becca and John just coming along. There is more to this in the update, but originally it was only supposed to be 3 family members for the visit, so we had everything planned for them already. The day I made the post, it was mentioned that Becca and John were coming too, to which we said no, point blank. But one family member in particular did not like that and started to cause trouble. And the court settlement happened within the last 5 years. The dates of the grooming occurred as of late 1990. We have since found that out. Now, onto the update. So, after making the post, my husband and I sat down and made a plan to approach the conversation with his family. Coincidentally, we were seeing them in person a couple of days after making the post. My husband wanted to wait until after dinner to start the conversation and pull his mother aside initially, but his grandparent was also there and kept getting in the way and bringing up how Becca and John are so excited to see the house and have dinner, etc. So my husband ended up snapping and ripped off the band-aid in front of everyone. He first started with the fact that he had something he wanted to say to them, to which everyone jumped the gun assuming it was a pregnancy announcement and began to get excited until they heard my husband say, "John is not welcome in our home." And the room went excited to silent in a split second. Then my husband continued with, "Due to John's history, I cannot allow him into my home where my wife and I will one day begin a family. I want our home to be a safe place. I understand you have chosen to continue a relationship with John because of Becca, which is your business, and we respect that, and while I love Aunt Becca and she is welcome into our home, John will not step foot into the house." And that is when the table went from silent to an eruption. As we suspected, and as many commenters suspected, my in-laws believed only what Becca and John told them. They did not look into anything further. I'm going to omit some specifics on the next bit of the conversation to protect the victim's privacy. Essentially, the family said it was lies. Me Too movement ruined his life, the victim was a liar, and went after him for money. Anything you can think of, they said it. To which we had ready the reports and deposition from the court documents ready, and read out specific things, like how he confessed that it happened, and that there were possibly others. This is something we should not have to do. No is a full sentence, but we had a feeling the family didn't know the real story. As soon as we did that, my mother-in-law changed her tune immediately. She sat back and took a pause and looked at us and said, "Well, obviously we weren't told the full story, and we decided to take Becca's word as the truth and not look any further." My husband's parents said that they were fine with this boundary and they support us. It's our house and we make the rules. They said they didn't want Becca and John to come anyway, and that it was the grandparent that forced this issue. From further conversation with my mother-in-law, she may also change her stance on if John is welcome in their home and in what capacity. My grandparent-in-law was furious. They didn't believe anything in the court documents, said they didn't want to know, and that they believed Becca's word over anything else. Even went as far to say that John wouldn't be interested in kids, so our future child would be safe. It was a bad point in the conversation. Up until this point, my husband did the talking, but now I stepped in. I said, "John is not welcome in our home. End of story. You invited Becca and John without asking. Your relationship with John is your business, but we will not have one." Luckily, at this point, both mother-in-law and father-in-law are now on our side, telling the grandparent that it's none of their business. We also found out other outside family members have placed the same boundary concerning John. Grandparent then decided that since they couldn't control the narrative, since they couldn't control what we did, and that their version of a perfect family was in shambles, it was already broken, that being terrible towards my husband was the next best step. So, they told my husband that their deceased grandparent, who my husband was closest to, would be disgusted with our actions. They then stormed out of the house, as much as you can with a walker, and they have decided to continue the silent treatment, which is is good because my husband says no contact is the best thing right now. Becca and John have changed their travel plans to less days and have gotten a hotel and their own dinner reservations. Mother-in-law has said that they will deal with them. Husband will be telling the aunt directly prior that John is not welcome in our house, and the family trip is in a few weeks. We don't know if or what will happen, and we don't know if the grandparent will come or not, or if they will still be childish by then. But it doesn't matter to us. We have placed our foot down. I may update a second time if more stuff goes down during the visit, but thanks again to everyone's engagement on the last post. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Out of curiosity, why is there still so much acceptance of the aunt? She clearly downplays what happened. I wouldn't be comfortable with someone like that around my kids, but maybe that's just me. I'm curious what you and your husband's take is on this part of it." I think the tides will shift now that the family knows Becca lied and omitted stuff. Now, we have no idea if she is also taking John at his word. And if so, just stupid on her part to not know her partner, but it seems like it was told to the family that he had an affair with a previous student, which is 100% lies. So we will see what happens going forward. Just happy father-in-law and mother-in-law came to their senses and recognized they didn't know things. Then user 2 commented and said, "Very well done. I now have a picture of grandparent-in-law storming out with their walker in my head. Reminds me of the scene from Despicable Me where Gru's tech wizard does the same on his mobility scooter, very slowly." Then user 3 commented and said, "Why do you have to be so old?" Then user 4 commented and said, "Your husband is going to find out that he slowly becomes the de facto patriarch of the younger generation. Once he puts his foot down, everyone else that wasn't brave enough will line up behind him. Everyone willing to rock the boat makes a hard boundary that John goes near no children in the family and is welcome in no homes. I suspect there is going to be a shift to the hell no, John must go side, and Becca and Granny Walker are going to have to stew in the consequences of outing themselves as Predator supporters." And finally, user 5 commented and said, "Good job, everyone. Sometimes keeping the peace really means giving up your own peace for others, and it should never be considered the polite thing to do. Boundaries make for better relationships all around." Small update later that day. After my husband told Becca directly that John is not welcome in our home, they have decided to cancel their trip. Grandparent is still unknown if they are coming. It's still no contact between us. Mother-in-law and father-in-law are still coming, but are going to readjust their plans as we find out more. I will update again if anything else happens. So I have to admit something. I've never seen Despicable Me. I apologize, but I'm going to assume that's what comment number 3 was referring to, a movie reference. But also, I had a childhood best friend, and then his dad went to jail too for doing questionable things to women in the 90s. So I almost relate to this story in a way, except he was a police officer, and he's a police officer in jail. So as you can imagine, his rectum is really big now. I hate to be graphic, but I'm just saying, if a cop goes to jail, it's Jover for him. But as for the story, good for OP and her husband for setting boundaries. And like that one comment said, boundaries make for better relationships all around. And I think that's the moral of the story. Setting boundaries, if y'all want to chill with him, that's fine, but we don't want him in our house and we don't want him around kids in the future. And then everyone was like, wait, he's a predator? We didn't know that. So I'm sure a lot of minds and perspectives are going to be changed regarding John. But anyway, next story. Story number 3. My 30F spouse, 35M, has been acting incredibly strange. Do I need to help him or do I need to escape? Sorry about formatting. I'm on mobile and I'm really shaken up as I write this. My 30F spouse, 35M, has been experiencing behavior that has only become increasingly concerning. In the past 2 months now, he has been talking about things that he claims are happening, but he's never mentioned before. As some background info, when his behavior first started getting concerning, I managed to convince him to go to the hospital to get checked out for his mental health. He wasn't even seen by a doctor though, and he was just told that he needs to take certain medicine to help him sleep. The issue is also that he smokes weed, so this medicine does not mix well with that, and he won't quit smoking. We also have 2 very young kids. Back to the weird recent behavior. He claims he had an old email with an inheritance that got hacked and he needs to access it. I tried helping him get on, but he hasn't used it in literally the 12 years we've been together. And I only knew of its existence previously when I helped him switch his Facebook login, and that was an email attached. Another example is that he believes everyone is talking about him to me and everyone else. I mean literally everyone else. He thinks there's some sort of big plan to hurt him or do something horrible to him soon, and that we're all in on it. On a few other separate occasions, he's asked about a show that we're on and asked how much money I'm being paid to keep a secret. He also thinks I'm having a secret phone call with somebody and that I've apparently left the room to accept these calls, which then results in me coming back crying about something I've apparently discussed on the phone. Whenever I try to explain to him that none of this is happening, he fights back saying that I'm just lying to him and to tell him the truth, that I need to tell him the truth or something bad is going to happen. And it's gotten so bad. He ended up getting fired from his job because he was barely showing up. He kept going to the cop station to make a report instead of going to work. And after he got fired, there was some sort of tense situation where they ended up calling a wellness check for him because they were afraid he was going to come back and hurt somebody. The cops showed up while I was also home, and he said he wouldn't hurt someone, he only acts in defense. In the recent weeks, he's gone from screaming at me demanding answers to just not talking to me at all. At this point, I'd rather he just not interact with me. The reason I'm writing this is because of what happened today. It was a nice day out, and I asked if he would come with me for a walk with our kids, to which he agreed to. He barely spoke to me or the kids on this walk, and when he came across a playground, I asked if we could take the kids there for a few minutes of play. And then he got upset at me for suggesting it and said I always control everything, and I'm the queen of the decisions. I didn't even tell him we were doing that, I just asked. When I mentioned this, he just said, "Do whatever you want like always." So I figured, why not? So I played with the kids at the playground, and he did his own thing. Someone left a couple of various balls there, and he was throwing them around, and then he decided to pick up the football and throw it in my direction. It flew past me a couple of feet, and I asked him why did he do that, and he said, "Why are you upset? It didn't hit you." To which I responded, "Well, what if it did?" And then he said, "If I wanted it to hit you in the head, I would have thrown it that way." Then he started on a rant about how he's going through the same thing with everyone lying to him, after which he sat down in the corner of the park and was literally doing nothing. I was getting upset, so I packed up the kids and started walking to leave the park, and I said to him, "We're going home," and started walking anyway. Apparently, he tried to yell out to us, but ended up taking a different way home than we did. He told me this when he met me on the street when we were almost home, saying that next time I want to be an idiot and walk away, maybe stop and listen for him calling out. I didn't hear him, but honestly, he could have easily caught up to us. I was getting more and more upset, and I said I wanted to go for a drive to get coffee, and he said fine. I said I wanted to take the kids, and then he asked why. Then I said fine, you stay home with them, and he said no, they can go with you, and started putting them in the car. I got in the car, and he got in the passenger seat, to which I asked him if he's coming with, and he said yes and to drive. I told him I didn't want him coming with because he's been mean to me, and he said he could be a lot meaner. As I started driving away, he kept going off on the usual BS he's been talking about lately, and I told him I don't want to hear it. He started screaming at me to keep driving and shut the F up. I stopped the car and told him to get out of my face, and at this point I started crying and yelling at him to get out, and he yelled back, "No, just drive." And then I said I should just drive him to the police station for that, and he said he would choke me unconscious before we even got there. I was crying even more at this point, and I said I don't want to be with him anymore, and I want out. And he said no. He continued to be a jerk for the rest of the car ride, where I pleaded with him to not treat me this way, especially in front of our children. I told him it's not fair to them or to me, and he said to not bring them into this, and I said how couldn't I? They're literally in the car. Anyway, after I drove us home, he asked how long I've been waiting to break up with him and who I'm replacing him with, and I told him I haven't been, and there's no one else, which of course he doesn't believe. When he got inside, he even started taunting me, saying, "I should take you to the cop station," in a girly voice. He's outside smoking now, and I'm inside with the kids writing this. Of course, I'm shook up currently, but I don't know what to do. We only have the one vehicle, which is in both of our names, and the place we rent is actually my mom's, so we don't have a lease. But we both have our addresses attached to this place on our licenses. He wasn't always like this. Literally only the past couple of months his behavior has been this bad. I miss the person he used to be. I miss that he would spend time with me, with the kids, but he spends all his time by himself now. I don't know if he's going through some sort of manic episode or what's triggering this change in behavior, but I really don't know what to do. Is there something differently I can do to help him? Every time he talks to me about whatever situation, he doesn't accept any answer I say, and also won't accept if I say nothing. Edit. I just wanted to update and let you all know that we are safe. I'm sorry for not saying anything sooner. I'm a bit overwhelmed with how popular this post got and will give an actual update later. Thank you for the advice and comments as well, and I will mention a couple of things. We are not in the US. Where we are, marijuana is legal, so my spouse does get it from government-run dispensaries. I don't think there's a chance his stuff got laced, aside from the fact that he mixes cigarettes with it, and a lot of people mentioned meth. There is just no way. He doesn't go anywhere random. He doesn't talk to people outside of our household, aside from the few times he would go to the police station, and I have his location on his phone, so I can see where he goes when he leaves. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "I just want to say I was that terrified kid in the back seat. Absolutely traumatizing. My mom always came up with an excuse as to why we couldn't leave the house or leave dad, and made me suffer for many years of my life. And I'm 28 years old now, trying to deal with the trauma it has given me. Please stop making excuses and leave. Get out for the kids. My mom never did, and it truly has ruined my mental health." Then user 3 commented and said, "Wow, this is way more urgent than anyone seems to be acting. Are you able to sneak yourself and your kids out right now while he's smoking? You could start by going to the police station and telling them what's going on. They should hopefully be able to connect you to resources for families fleeing domestic abuse. If you have someone you can stay with, then that makes it easier, but either way, do not spend another night in that house with him, and definitely don't let your kids around him unsupervised. If you can't sneak out, I would call 911. Tell them what just happened and about his threats, and that you need to get out, but that you are afraid for you and your children's safety. They are not always the most helpful, but something needs to happen. At least then, if he comes back in and tries to do something to you, you'll be on the phone with them, and they can send someone then. Might be a good strategy while you're leaving too, if you're worried he might catch you." It sounds like he's having some kind of psychological break. The paranoia and being convinced everyone is part of some conspiracy against him is abnormal there. But he has clearly told you that he is a danger to you, so you need to worry about that first. Get yourself and your kids to safety and figure the rest out after that. Once it's time to deal with him and his situation, depending on where you are, getting him involuntarily detained for psychiatric treatment requires proving that he's a danger to himself or others. So at least you can show how he's threatened you. But worry about that after you and your kids are safely away from him. Then user 3 commented and said, "Heavy cannabis use can trigger the onset of schizophrenia in people who are already susceptible. Your husband is right about the age where this tends to happen in men. I am not a doctor, but I really think this is a mental health emergency, either due to a drug interaction, drug use itself, or because he is rapidly developing a psychotic disorder. You need to see a mental health professional, not the ER, and describe all of this behavior to them, including the frequency of his marijuana use." Then OP replied and said, "That's the thing. He saw a crisis nurse at the hospital and a therapist and social worker there, and I felt like the only thing they tried to do was get him to take a specific medication. It's called quetiapine or something, but anyway, I don't think he is regularly taking it, and if he is, he definitely shouldn't be mixing it with smoking weed." Then user 4 commented and said, "That's the generic Seroquel, which is actually an antipsychotic medication used for schizophrenia and bipolar episodes. That makes way more sense to be prescribed than a sleeping pill. You're right though, he needs to be taking it as recommended. I looked up the drug interactions, and the ones listed are moderate and mostly physical, although generally people with any kind of psychotic disorder I think are not supposed to use marijuana." And finally, user 5 commented and said, "Just call the police for assistance to leave. If you have somewhere to go, it's that easy. I've done it. He'll put a good front on, but you need to tell them you are in fear for your life because he threatened to strangle you. You can't wallow and be a scared baby. Not in front of your kids. He's traumatized them enough. You can also have him removed for the threats on your life, and you can change the locks. Do not let another day pass on this." Update. Hello. First of all, thank you all for the comments, messages, etc. on my previous post. Obviously, it got a bit too much to keep up with responding, but I just want to say I really appreciate the help. To give an update, I left the house that night I made the post, but I went back home the following day. I wanted to be able to collect some sort of evidence I could use, because my spouse has been really good at downplaying his symptoms to any authority figure. I wanted to mention that I had been present at most doctor and hospital visits prior, so I know what they did recommend for him. I felt at the time that they did not give him enough help for the crisis he was obviously going through. Anyway, continuing on, the couple of days after the Sunday post, he did not really engage in much conversation with me or our children. Every time he entered the room, I set my phone to record. I did not get anything until Thursday, when he finally started talking to me again. He was questioning who I have been talking to about him and who has been trying to sabotage his life. Obviously, I denied everything, because there was no one talking to me about him, aside from this Reddit post which he doesn't know about. about, but this started to anger him, which included him yelling at me and saying if anyone is talking to me about him, to bring him to the house so that he can take care of them himself. I tried not to engage anymore, and this made him more upset as he was continuing to demand answers from me. He would then say, "Oh, I want to hit you," or "Don't make me slap you," when I was either not answering or just saying I don't know what he was talking about. And I got this on recording. After he ended up walking away and leaving the room, I took the kids to bed, locked us in our room, and tried to sleep. The following morning, he insisted on driving me to work. I told him I wanted the car, to which he disagreed with me and said he needed it. After dropping off our kids, he started going off on me about how I am stupid and dumb, a female dog, etc., for keeping his inheritance. Again, something he is clearly having delusions about, and he's saying I'm keeping it from him. I tried to disengage completely, keeping myself to the far side of the passenger seat, which caused him to grab me by the back of my neck and pull me closer to him, where he told me to listen to him. I obviously reacted to this and was super upset, telling him to please focus on driving and not touching me again. After he drove me to work, the last thing I said to him as he was still going off on me with the car window open was, "You desperately need help." And once I got in, I called my boss and let her know what happened. She came in, canceled her appointments for the day, and took me to the police station. We made a report, although the sergeant we initially spoke to seemed to be against us making a report. He kept saying he will be homeless if I report him, like he's the victim in this scenario. I told him my safety and the kids' safety should be more important, and he brought in a different officer to make the statement with me. Once I completed that statement, they let me know to stay away from the house as they were going to arrest him and will call once he's out of the house. About 5 hours later, he was arrested. Apparently, he was very compliant, and with all the information I provided, they actually took him to the hospital, and he is currently on a 30-day psychiatric hold. He will be going to court at some point for uttering threats and assault, but seeing how he doesn't have a criminal record, I'm sure it will just end up being a slap on the wrist. So, as of now, I am home, safe with the children, and we are getting our locks changed. I will also most likely get a protection order, but in an ideal world, he gets better, and that's not necessary. I guess we will see in the future. I want to again thank everyone for their comments and assistance. A lot of you made some excellent points, and although I know some of my decisions probably seemed like dumb ones, I was trying to figure out the best solution logically for all of us. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "I swear to God, F the police and that sergeant trying to talk you out of it. Gee, I really wonder why she doesn't want to go to the police. What a mystery. Good luck, OP." Then user 2 commented and said, "I dealt with something similar, but thankfully not with a romantic partner, and we shared no assets or children. It was terrifying, and I am still affected by it daily. My friend ended up being diagnosed as schizoaffective disorder, paranoid schizophrenia, and he did really well on meds. Actually so well that he stopped believing he had an issue and stopped taking the meds. His latest bout of mania legitimately scared me, and I had to remove myself. Your husband is starting a very long road, and a lot of mentally ill people struggle with keeping straight down that long road. I'm not saying you should remove him from your life, but I am saying you have the best chance of healing and raising unaffected adults if you do remove him. Your love for him and the family you've built cannot sustain mental illness, and love is not all you need. Sometimes it becomes way bigger than you, and the kindest thing you can do is bow out. I'm really sorry that you're in this situation." Then user 3 commented and said, "Paranoid schizophrenia runs in my family. The problem with your husband is that he's already become more violent, and it will likely get worse if you let him return to the home. I have seen family members get better on medication only to make the decision to stop medicating because they no longer believe they were ill. Over and over and over again. I've also seen them act normally in front of others, which made it difficult to even get them help in the first place. One of my family members attempted to end the life of their caregivers. They almost succeeded. Another attempted to end the life of a person who they thought was real, but who was actually a hallucination. You are not safe. Your children are not safe, and you are not taking this seriously enough." Then user 4 commented and said, "I'm very proud of you for taking the first step towards a new healthy life for you and your kids. But to continue on this path, you need to quit being hopeful for the best and start preparing for the worst. It's a long road, but you've shown the intelligence and fortitude to successfully see this through. That being said, I'm going to have to stress to you that he's not going to get better in 30 days. Get that restraining order ASAP. One reason is he will be served while in custody, instead of you having to track him down to serve him. Second reason, they look at how quickly you do these things when he goes to court for the charge. It shows you are actually going to follow through and the seriousness of your situation. Third reason is he is more likely to be charged for domestic violence and threats. And the fourth reason is it will usually make custody and separation move faster. This is one of those situations where crap in one hand and hope he miraculously becomes mentally healthy in 30 days in the other. Which fills up quicker? Good luck, OP, and don't stray from your path to safety and happiness. Thank you. It's definitely wishful thinking that he will get the treatment needed to go back to normal. I don't want to think of this as the end of our relationship, but at the same time, I don't know if he would want to be back with me, since I got him detained. Right now, the only thing I'm thinking about are the kids. Then user 5 said, make sure as soon as the protection order is in place to let the school know that he isn't allowed to take the kids out. Find a therapy place for you and the kids and have them help you explain to them that it's not safe to talk to dad at the moment. That way, he won't try to get his revenge through them. And good for you. And you're right, him ending up homeless is not your concern. They are toddlers, so they're a bit too young to understand. And also, their daycare is well aware. Then user 5 replied again and said, I work in a daycare, and unless we have a restraining order on paper of the other parent showing up, we have to release their child to them. There's nothing we can do. And children are smarter than you give them credit for. Just because they can't say everything doesn't mean they don't notice everything. Then user 6 commented and said, I think something to note is to keep a close eye on your kids in their early 20s and teach them the signs. It could be hereditary, but with enough foreknowledge, it can be caught early and treated. And finally, user 7 commented and said, I too dealt with something similar. Use this time to get the divorce started. Have a plan. When the 30-day hold is up, you will get immense pressure from doctors, social workers, and family to take him back. Repeat variations of, I do not feel safe with him in the home. I fear for my safety when he is around, over and over. They will try to convince you that he's fine because they can't release him without somewhere to go. Use this time to get legal advice. Use an attorney with experience with mentally ill spouses. Try and get a restraining order for you and the kids. I know you have a lot going on, but you have to act. The first time my ex was hospitalized, I listened and took him back. He was livid and blamed me for what happened to him. The second time he was hospitalized, I was lucky to walk away with my life. Act now. You have kids to think about. So, OP got some pretty good advice in the comments from people who work in the daycares or, have been in similar situations with mentally ill partners, but it's unfortunate that this is what she has to do. Her husband is mentally ill and now she has to leave him, which I understand because, he's got the schizophrenia going on and he can get violent, but it's he can't get the help? The consensus here is prioritize yourself, your kids, make sure they're safe, which is good. And then also throw your husband to the wayside. I'm not hating on OP for what she did, and she can't really do too much. She can't force him to go anywhere, but I don't know. This one didn't sit right with me. I've never dealt with anybody before who's had schizophrenia, so maybe this is just my ignorance and lack of experience speaking, but it seems he has it, it's over, discard him. Who cares if he ends up homeless? Also, we don't know what country OP lives in, but sometimes the resources you get for mental health and stuff like that can be pretty garbage. So again, I understand why OP did it, but I'm not totally happy here. But again, it's not my decision. Anyway, layers, nuance, and gray areas and all that stuff. But anyway, next story. Story number 4. Am I the a-hole to ask my husband to block his female friend who warned him not to marry me? I, 26F, want my husband, 27M, to immediately block one of his friends, Kyla, 27F. He thinks I am overreacting and wants opinions from some cool-headed people on if I am just acting crazy, or if this is something that would cross the line for you. My husband has a group of 8 friends that he's been close with since his college days. Kyla is one of those friends. When my husband and I started dating, he introduced me to all of them, and everyone was friendly. I used to hang out with them frequently. I am an introvert, and so is my husband, and I would always ask him to spend time alone, as being in social settings just saps all of my energy away. And his friends, especially Kyla, always made it a point to tell me how he hangs out with them less after he started dating me. Kyla also had a weird energy around me. If I was with my husband, she would be the most friendliest with me. However, as soon as he walked away, she acted like I did not exist. My husband hates to be touched by others. We are both neurodivergent, but Kyla would always tease him by trying to hug him, mess with his hair, etc., and I never felt like she was flirting with him, but just teasing him to make him annoyed. Overall, she just feels like a person who has severe social boundary issues. Well, we got married 2 years ago, and things have been great between us. Last week, we had our secondary marriage anniversary and invited a bunch of people over, and his friends stayed back after all the guests left, and we were all drinking and chatting. One of his friends, Jen, became a bit tipsy and started complimenting me on how beautiful our house is, how I care for my husband, and how he has changed for the better since marriage. Everyone was laughing at my husband at how much of a slob he was when he was single, and then Jen then pointed at Kyla and said, "You better pay up because you had bet their marriage would not even last for 2 years." And everyone became silent and started changing the topic, and I also did not want to spoil the mood, and I let it go, but it stuck in my head. After everyone left, I asked my husband what Jen was talking about. He also had noticed Jen saying that and was ready with a full explanation. He told me the story of what happened when we got engaged. When he proposed to me, he had not told his friends that he was going to do that. We went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and he surprised me there. We put our engagement pictures on Instagram while we were on the trip, and it was a big surprise to everyone as we were only dating for 1 year. When he came back and met all of his friends, everyone congratulated him. However, Kyla started ranting about how he was a fool to propose so quickly, and she felt that I was not the right girl for him. Seems like she said some unkind things about me, implying I was a gold digger. My husband's family is wealthy, but so is mine. She had said that she bet we would break up within 2 years if we got married. That is why Jen was taunting her about how happy my husband was with me. I was furious at this point, as I felt this is something that he should have told me, and I asked him to tell me truthfully if he had ever dated Kyla or had any history with her, as he has always told me that he has never dated anyone from his friend group. He said that he has of course not dated or hooked up with Kyla. However, Kyla asked him out a few times when they were in college, and he always politely declined. I asked why it is he said no to her, and he said he just does not have any romantic feelings for her. And I can see that because my husband does have a type based on me and the other people he's dated in the past, and Kyla is the opposite of that. But I am just mad at her for saying bad things about me, especially after knowing that we were already engaged and betting against my marriage. I told my husband that he needs to minimize contact with Kyla, and she is not invited to parties at our house anymore. He feels I am being too harsh for something she said almost 3 years ago, and he also pointed out that she has been very supportive to both of us, and has also helped a lot during our wedding arrangements. He feels that she is just blunt and forthright when she speaks, but does not mean those things. He told me to take some time and calm down, and we would revisit this topic in a week. He is worried that this will completely change the dynamics within his friend group. So, am I the a-hole for wanting him to block her and stop inviting her to our house? Do you think I'm overreacting? I think betting against our marriage and bad-mouthing me behind my back seems like a huge betrayal. I'm also mad at my husband that he kept this fact from me and also never told me that Kyla asked him out during college days. Am I just being crazy and reactive? How would you react in this situation? I don't want to distance my husband from his friends, but I also do not want to see that female dog Kyla's face ever again. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "How has Kyla acted since the wedding? Has her behavior changed? You describe a bad behavior in the past tense, so one might believe she's not doing those things anymore. Does she still exhibit boundary issues with your husband?" Yes, her behavior with my husband has not changed at all after the marriage. However, she is the same with all her other friends too. With me, she is fake nice, where she acts like we are best friends in front of my husband and barely talks to me when he is not around. Then user 2 commented and said, "What did he think when you told him that she's totally different when he leaves?" He just says, "She does not know you that well, just ignore her," and she has never said anything negative to my face. However, as a girl, you just know when someone does not like you. It's hard to explain to him that it's your feeling and not based on anything she has specifically said or done. Then user 3 commented on blocking her and said, "Especially with the physical contact, she's so clearly into the husband, and the fact that he's not shutting it down means that he likes the extra attention from her. It's one thing to get a friendly hug or maybe an occasional touch on the shoulder from a platonic friend, but crap like playing with his hair? That is 100% flirty behavior, and the fact that he's not shutting it down himself is gross." So, I have to reply here. My husband is physically allergic to people touching him. He has a startled response. Either he jerks away from them or tenses up when someone hugs him and his face turns red. The weird thing is, he can hug his parents or sister and does not get the reaction. He never had that issue with me even when we first started dating. However, even if my sister or parents hug him, he gets that response. So the fact that he shuts down any touch from Kyla is an understatement. Small update. So, I just remembered about my post and logged into the account after many months. Things were really horrible for the last few days, and that female dog Kyla almost ruined my life. I don't even know how to describe it. I might write about it next week as I saw a lot of messages asking for an update, and I just want other women to be careful of such snakes. Update, 6 months later. I had posted almost 6 months ago regarding my husband's friend Kyla betting that our marriage would not last for more than 2 years. I was upset and had asked my husband to stop talking to her because she disrespected our marriage. Since then, Kyla has pulled some really pathetic crap to stir up issues between my husband and I. After I wrote the post, my husband was trying to convince me that Kyla was just joking when she made those comments, and it happened so long ago. Well, Kyla messaged me the next day apologizing to me for her comments and also not making more efforts to connect with me. I accepted her apology and started warming up to her. She started inviting me for brunches and the occasional girls' night out, and then I felt included with her and her friend group. One day during brunch, I brought up why Kyla really thought our marriage would not work out, and Kyla told me that my husband broke up with his long-term ex-girlfriend Joanna 2 months before he started dating me. I knew that part, but Kyla told me that my husband was really heartbroken after the breakup and swore to her that he would stay away from dating anyone. When he met me, my mom set us up on a blind date, she was surprised with how quickly we hit it off, and Kyla thought I was his rebound relationship. But when he proposed to me within a year, she was worried that he was making a very rash decision. My husband's family is rich, and she thought it was unwise for him to marry so quickly without knowing me well. She did not know enough about me and that my family is also very well off. That is why she was concerned that I was taking advantage of his vulnerable state. And she apologized to me and said that it was wrong for her to assume that, and over the years, she has seen how happy we are together. And I appreciated her honesty, and Kyla and I became good friends since then and started hanging out more frequently. Around 2 months ago, my husband went for a conference to Seattle for 3 nights. And after he came back, I got a "Hey girly" message on Instagram from Joanna, his ex, and she told me that my husband contacted her a few months ago, and they met in Seattle during the conference, and she could give me more proof if I wanted. I went through my husband's Instagram, but he seems to have blocked her, and I made a mistake of mentioning it to Kyla, as she was the only person honest to me about Joanna, and she went into detective mode to help me. She was still friends with Joanna on Instagram, as they all went to college together, and she opened her profile. The message sent to me was from a different profile with no followers. We checked her photos, and we saw that she attended the same conference as my husband did in Seattle. Kyla suggested I should ask Joanna for more proof and also ask my husband about the same before assuming the worst. I asked my husband if he met Joanna, and he said yes. He told me he just met her in the expo hall, and they chatted for a few minutes. I asked him why he did not mention it to me, and he told me it was just a quick conversation, and he didn't think too much of it. And he asked me how I knew, and I told him that Kyla mentioned that she saw her pictures at the conference, and I thought he might have seen her. I messaged Joanna again to share more proof, and she told me that they have been chatting for the past 2 months and planned to attend the conference together. She shared a log of their messages where my husband was actively flirting with her. The screenshots did look legit, but I did not see any of those messages in my husband's Instagram profile. I talked to Kyla about it, as I did not know what to believe, and I messaged Joanna to tell us what happened between them, and she told me that he invited her to the room at nights and they hooked up, but she does not have any photos, as he insisted they do not take any pictures together. I immediately realized it was fake, and I messaged Joanna to F off. She kept on insisting that they were telling the truth, and she spent the nights with my husband in his room on all 3 nights. I told her that my husband and I were playing a video game, Sea of Thieves, for almost 2 to 3 hours each night after his dinner, as that is what we do to catch up when he is away. Unless Joanna was sitting behind him watching us play until he fell asleep, she was full of crap. I also told my husband about the whole incident, and he told me I should have come to him sooner, and he told me that he has gotten no contact with Joanna ever since they broke up, and he just ran into her at the conference. He told me I could check his phone and everything to verify that he has blocked her everywhere. And I told him I do not need to, and Joanna might have run into him and just decided to F his life up by making up stuff. When all the friends met that weekend, my husband and I told everyone about how Joanna sent messages to me and faked everything. Kyla was also telling what happened, as she had told her about it. But Kyla accidentally let it slip out that it's lucky we are nerds and we played video game at nights before sleeping, or else props to Joanna for making up a convincing story. But I never told Kyla about the video game stuff. I just told her Joanna is full of crap, and I blocked her. It took me until I came to home to connect the dots, and I told my husband about it, and he confronted Kyla. She denied it and told him that I told her about the video game stuff on a phone call, but I don't remember doing that. We have since decided to keep our distance from Kyla. She has called me multiple times to meet up, but I just make up reasons that I am busy, and I do not know why she did it, but at this point I am not interested in it, and we have decided to just see her on social occasions and avoid hanging out with her as much as possible. I feel stupid stupid that she played me for a fool, and I should have not gone to her when Joanna started messaging me. In hindsight, it seems suspicious that Kyla started telling me about Joanna, and at the same time, Joanna claimed to have an affair with my husband. I don't know what her intentions are, but I am mad enough that I will avoid her as much as possible. I wish I had some real proof that she was the one messaging me so that I could expose her. I also feel bad for suspecting my husband, but I am glad my husband and I are on the same page now. Now, here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Does your husband also believe that Kyla made up a fake Instagram account pretending to be Joanna? Because that's pretty psycho behavior." Yes, he believes me because I told him that I never told Kyla why I thought the account was fake. It's possible she guessed it, even if I never mentioned to her that we play video games at night, but it's suspicious that she guessed accurately as to why I realized the account was fake. Then User 2 commented and said, "Why didn't you try to message her real Instagram since you knew the one she used to message you wasn't her main? Why not message her main account? That would have cleared it up pretty quickly, I think." Her Instagram was private. I did not want to follow her as it would have looked really bad for me to add her when my husband has her blocked. The only way I could see her Instagram was when Kyla showed it to me on her phone. Then OP replied to a similar comment and said, "Trust me, I thought about this. Firstly, I will look crazy if I reach out to Joanna, my husband's ex, behind his back. Secondly, even if it was her messaging me, she would just lie and tell me it was not her. I also cannot disregard the fact that I started getting messages a week after my husband ran into her and told her that he was happily married to me. I have to accept it was Kyla, if it was her, and she will get away with this BS. We do not have any proof it was her, and all we could do is distance ourselves from her." Then User 3 commented and said, "Why did you lie to your husband about the fact that this woman had messaged you in the first place? You were the problem here." I agree. I should have told him right away. I tried to be sneaky to know if he really met her at the conference. I was half expecting him to deny it if he was trying to hide something that happened. I think I let my insecurity get the worst of me. Lesson learned. And finally, User 4 commented and said, "Did he bring a gaming PC or an Xbox with him to a work conference?" No, we both use Steam Decks to play games together when he is away. Story number 5. Am I the a-hole for not breaking up with my girlfriend back when I found out she cheated on me? I have been with my girlfriend for about 6 years now. 5 years ago, she cheated on me. I found out, but I didn't tell her I knew. And if I'm being honest, I had very low self-esteem back then, and I thought she was the best I could do. I threw myself into my work, and I have improved my position at my employer. And I have an opportunity now to move to a different location, and I kind of want a fresh start. I told my now ex that I'm accepting a job promotion and moving on. She said she wasn't going to move away from her friends and family unless we had a more defined future. I said I understood and that I accepted that she was not going to come with me. She asked how long the job was for, and I said it was a permanent move. She freaked out and said that I had wasted 6 years of her life planning a future with me, and I mentioned that it really wasn't 6 years since she cheated on me at her sister's bachelorette party. She asked me when I found out, and I told her. 2 of her friends told me about it and showed me pictures. I think they thought we talked about it, and they thought that I had forgiven her, but I never brought it up after I found out. I got tested, and I was much more careful with our use of condoms. But after I got over the shock of it, I just considered her a roommate that I slept with. It was easier to stay with her than to break up with her and find someone new. She is calling me all kinds of names and trying to get people on her side. I really don't care. I'm moving across the country, but I want an outside opinion though. Was I an a-hole? I will state that I paid 75% of all of our bills for the last 5 years, and I paid for vacations and gifts. I did fully treat her as a girlfriend. Then in the comments section, one user said, "Run, Forrest. She thinks it is not a big deal that she cheats, but you leaving is the worst thing. If you know she cheated once, there must have been more instances. I'm glad you're out." Then user 2 commented and said, "Your ex didn't deserve any better, but you did. You should have left when you found out she cheated, for your own benefit. I don't think this has been a developmental experience that men should have. It's damaging, and you prolonged it." And finally, user 3 commented and said, "Bro, you are good. Move for the job. You deserve better than her. She didn't care about your feelings when she cheated, so why should you care about her in general?" Update. She went nuts. I'm glad to be a few states away from her. The ones who said it wasn't a one-time thing might be right. She spent the last month swinging between begging me to forgive her and calling me a worthless piece of crap. At the end, she said that she was glad that she hadn't been faithful, that she hooked up with guys whenever I went out of town for work. Then she said she didn't mean it and that she was lying to try and hurt me. Since I don't know what to believe, I am just going to assume the worst is the truth. I'm liking this fresh start away from that drama. Thank you all for the advice. Now here are some more relevant comments. User 1 said, "Good luck, OP. Fresh start and STD tests are all you need." And finally, User 2 commented and said, "Of course it's the truth. She is saying the truth out of anger. Just block her everywhere and forget she ever existed." So, first and foremost, absolutely glad that OP's out and gone, but like that second comment from the first batch of comments that we read said, this was not a developmental experience. He delayed something and now he's experiencing this way later down the line. He should have left. He said he treated her like a roommate that he slept with. Okay, but then he also said 5 seconds later that he paid for 75% of the bills and vacations and gifts for her. I'm not hating on the guy, but like, you should have left because you put yourself through that for, she cheated, a year or two into the relationship? Let's just say 4 or 5 years of knowing that your partner cheated and staying with them. I'm not calling him weak, but she's for the streets, and I wish that he would have learned his worth beforehand. But like he said, he had low self-esteem, so I understand why. I'm not blaming the guy, but, just, god dang, 5 years, bro. But you know what? He's gone. He's out. He can start the growing now. And as long as he's doing it eventually at some point, better late than never, right? So he's gone away from the drama across the country. He took his STD test, and he has a new job. Next story. Story number 6. My 23F boyfriend, 24M, is terrified of having sex with me. And I don't know why or how to bring it up. Throwaway account because he uses Reddit. So, as the title says, he is terrified of having sex with me. We've been together for almost 6 months now, and every time I attempt to get intimate, he's never initiated, he always manages to deflect so smoothly that I don't even realize at the moment. He's fine with kissing and cuddling, and about 50% of the time, he just walks up and kisses me while I'm doing something, or just grabs me to cuddle, but if I take it further, he'll change the topic or the mood. Like if we're watching a movie or something and I start feeling him up, he'll turn into play wrestling, and after, we're done. And I'm usually too sweaty or tired to have sex. I'm cool if he's waiting until marriage or something because other than this one thing, he's an otherwise amazing person. But I just need him to say that. None of this weird deflection stuff, which is driving me mad. If at any point he said, "I don't want to have sex for X reason," I'd have either accepted it or broken up with him. I've been single long enough to know how to look after myself, so it's not like I need him to sleep with me. We used to only see each other on the weekends, but I haven't tried anything since he moved in over a month ago because I realized that I would just get turned down, and I know how annoying it feels to be harassed into giving sex. And before anyone starts with the "red flag girl, break up with him" or some crap like that, he's a great boyfriend and person. He's thoughtful, loving, smart, he's working towards his PhD in biochemistry, and he's also super attractive. This weekend, we both got kind of drunk, me more than him, and for whatever reason, he was looking so sexy that I couldn't resist myself, and he kissed me, and instead of just kissing him back normally, I shoved my hand down his pants. It was like I electrocuted him, and he jerked away, and the expression on his face was one of pure terror, and I didn't realize that until this morning. I just thought I accidentally scratched him down there or something, and he just quietly put away the drinks and pushed me to bed. We usually sleep together, but just sleep. I passed out afterwards, and I think he slept in the guest bedroom, but I don't know because he's really good at cleaning things up, and I woke up around 1 p.m. with a super hazy memory. The only reason I realized that night was real was because he effing flinched when I kissed him after lunch. He made really good scrambled eggs, and he's been a bit more, wary around me when I hug him or crawl into his lap to cuddle, normal stuff that he's fine with. Like, if my hand even goes near his thighs, he'll shift away or hold my hands or something else. And I don't even know how to bring it up because it's such a weird question. Do I just ask him, "Why don't you want to have sex with me?" From previous experience with my exes, blunt questions usually don't go over well, and I don't want to tank this relationship over something so simple. Edit. First of all, for those of you accusing me of SA when we were making out, he was lying down. I was straddling his waist while holding his face, and he had his arms wrapped around my back and head pulling me into him. From my previous experience, this is usually the part where the clothes come off, so I assumed it would be fine. It was not. My bad. And he doesn't seem to be mad at me and is acting normal. I apologized for the weekend, and he just waved it off and said it was fine. I was drunk and it was just a shock. I said I wouldn't do it again, and he just smiled and kissed my cheek, so I think we're good. Also, from what I could feel, yes, he has a penis, and no, it isn't small. About his sexuality, I'm like 99% certain he isn't gay, but I don't know if he's asexual. Second, we didn't get to talk about the sex thing because he came home upset because apparently the transduction didn't work properly, and now he has to regrow the cell lines, or something? I don't really understand it, but he's upset, so we just kind of cuddled, ordered pizza, and now he's sleeping, with me this time. Now here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "You moved in with a guy that you can't have a super basic relationship conversation with, and you SA'd someone who has repeatedly made it clear they don't want to have sex with you? How about you just tell him how you feel about not having sex in a relationship, and then asking him how he feels? Your question wasn't bad because it's blunt, it's bad because it's making his feelings about you." I did not SA him. We were kissing after a romantic dinner, and I was kind of on top of him, grabbing his head, and he was like pulling me into him, and I took it a little bit further. It's not like I just randomly grabbed his crotch out of nowhere. And he moved in because his rent increased and I'm closer to his university. When I asked my ex-boyfriend for less sex, by the way, because he wanted it every night, he broke up with me. I don't want to lose my current boyfriend because I want sex. Then OP replied to a now deleted comment and said, "Yeah, I was not trying to SA him. Like I said in the post, if at any point he directly says he doesn't want to sleep with me, I will either accept it or break up. I will apologize for what I did, and I'll never do it again, but I don't know how to even approach this. Every other boyfriend I had was horny 24/7, so it just feels weird being the one who has to ask for it." Then user 2 commented and said, "You need to talk to him about last night and what his deal is. If he wants to wait, then put it on the table. If he's been essayed before, not by you or anything, and it's untreated, that can be treated. If he has bad training from religious parents, figure out, etc." I say this because without knowing why, any advice here is going to do nothing. Long term, he's a great guy, but what guarantee do you have that he won't be the exact same way on your wedding night? You need to talk to him. Apologize for being drunk, apologize for hurting him, and ask what's going on and what you two need to do to move forward, as you are warm for his form and you want to move forward. Yeah, I'll talk to him tonight when he gets home. Thanks for not accusing me of SA. Update. Before we get into the update, I want to answer a few questions. 1. Why did you let him move in? Because his rent was going up by like $250 a month at the end of last year, and he would be locked in a 6-month contract. And I own my apartment. I'm giving him a 50% discount on his old rate because of a boyfriend discount I made up. He wanted to pay me the full amount, but I refused, and he decided to do most of the chores around the house. So it's fine. So far, no problems. 2. Why did you never talk about sex before? It just felt super awkward talking about it so clinically. And as one of the commenters mentioned, I wanted sex to happen organically, not because I pestered him into doing it. Now, on to the update. So, I started off with an apology about what I did on Saturday again, and he waved it off just like last time, saying that I was drunk and it was just a shock. I still don't believe it was SA like most of you say, and more of me reading the situation wrong. But it was wrong of me to do it when I knew he didn't want to take it any further than kissing. Then I started to poke into why he doesn't want to have sex with me, and like one of the commenters said, I made it more gentle. I said it almost word for word like one of the commenters said, and his response broke my heart. Fortunately, it isn't because he's gay, asexual, a virgin, or has a micropenis. He started off by going quiet, and it took a little more probing before he asked me not to laugh, and I feared it was the micropenis, but it was far worse. This man was SA'd twice. Once as a teenager by a teacher, which would also be creepish, and once a few years ago at a party. And both times, no one really took him seriously, and some of them effing congratulated him on getting with women. He tried to go to the cops the first time, and they made his life such a living hell that his family moved towns. And the second SA was almost just as bad. My boyfriend is a 6'2", somewhat fit and very attractive man, so the girl who SA'd him at a party basically blackmailed him into having sex with her by saying that she would scream SA, and no one would believe it was him who's innocent. And because no one other than his parents really took the event seriously, he thought that I would laugh at him too. Obviously I didn't, and at this point he was kind of crying, so I just hugged him and we sat there for a while. Honestly, the only reason I reacted so calmly was because after reading the comments, I prepared myself for him to say he got SA'd. Thanks for that, because I probably would have panicked and ruined my relationship otherwise. I apologized again now that I knew his history, and he said that it brought back memories, and that's why he reacted like that. Now I feel horrible, and he doesn't seem to hold a grudge, but I'm still going to do something really nice for him. He always wanted to go skiing, so maybe I could book a weekend at a nearby mountain the next time he's free. I asked if he was open to having sex with me, and he said that he's been trying ever since he moved in. But he was also terrified that he would have like a breakdown or something, and that's why he's been giving mixed signals. Every time we sleep together, he wants to do more than just sleep, but he's just been afraid. I said that I was willing to wait however long it took and suggested therapy, but therapist wait lists here are really long, especially for the ones we found who deal with trauma, so I don't know how long that would take. We both promised to actually talk to each other, and I also reassured him that I would always take any problems he has seriously and not laugh, even if he thinks it's shameful. Things are looking up. We both promised to actually talk to each other, and I also reassured him that I would always take any problems he has seriously and not laugh, even if he thinks it is shameful. Things are starting to look up. He wants to have sex with me, and we're going to take it slow for now to sort of ease him into it. So maybe I'll just set up something romantic this weekend and woo him. I cooked him some of his favorite food for dinner, and now he isn't tensing up when I touch him, so baby steps. Anyway, thank you guys for the advice, because while I was worrying about the micro penis or gay thing, SA never actually crossed my mind. So, thanks for the help. So, question for you guys. First off, very happy that the story ended this way, and what a surprise it ended with talking to your partner like the comment said. Like, hey, we can't even give you advice because we don't have all the details because you didn't talk to him. So I'm glad that happened. But, did you guys think she SA'd him? Let's take away the fact that he was SA'd because we didn't know it at that part of the story. But I didn't really feel like she was SA'ing him. Like, yeah, she read the situation wrong. Yeah, he hasn't had sex with her before, but I don't feel like that was SA. They were making out. And to what OP said, that's usually the part where the clothes come off. And when you're dating someone, I don't know, but they've never had sex before, so it's like, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle, because if they'd had sex before and then people were saying SA, I'd be like, no, they're partners. They've been together 6 months. But it's the fact that they haven't. So I'm like, I'm kind of torn. I feel like it was more just a dumb decision and she didn't read the situation right, like she said. I don't feel like that was SA. But if she knew and then did that, that's another thing. But she didn't know. But I'm curious what you guys think. But anyway, folks, we are at the end of the really long video. I'm really starving. I'm going to go have rice. That's all I have right now. But I'm going to have rice. I'm going to enjoy it. You can have some too if you want. We can put ketchup on it. But anyway, thanks for watching. Have a really good day. And bye-bye.